What's going on, Buffalo State Hockey? My name is Evan Harrington alongside Bengals head coach Steve Murphy for another episode of Mondays with Murph. We have a lot to get into this week. We're going to recap this past weekend set of games. We're going to talk about the current state of the team, where they sit in the SUNYAC, and also preparing for this weekend as they are back in SUNYAC action. But first, Murph, how you doing?
I'm all right, Evan. What do you got for me today?
Well, just presented it up there. We're going to tell you and talk to you about this past weekend set of games. So just, getting right into it, the team played on the road to start the weekend against SUNY Brockport. It was a close game for a while, 3-3 into the third, but ultimately Brockport came out winning that one 5-3. Just in your eyes, what went wrong in the third and at the end of the game that ended in a loss?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think it's becoming a trend here. It's the that was the third game. I mean, we rewind back to the Thanksgiving break against MSOE and Lawrence, and we had two leads going in the third period of those games, and one we did let slip away, and then the one Saturday night we almost did, and we're in a very similar spot against Brockport. You're tied 3-3. I thought we started slow, which is becoming another trend. And then our second period was really good. I thought we played a good second period again, and ultimately you're tied going into the third period, and you need that one to be your best period. And I don't know. Yeah, we just failed to show up again for the third game in a row in the third period. And so, ultimately Brockport was better than us when it mattered in the final 20 minutes, and they were able to secure the win.
So you mentioned second periods. It's kind of been a trend this season. The second periods have kind of been the best period for you guys, it seems like, all year. Is there a certain reason why that in your eyes?
Yeah, no, I don't know. I would love to pinpoint it, because if we could, then I'd love to tap into that to get that for third period and the first period. But no, I don't. I just think that we kind of start slow, and then we wake up a little bit late, and kind of get into gear during the second period and start to find our game. But then it all kind of goes away in the third period once that. Once that pressure mounts up and the game's on the line, we seem to really struggle with that. And I think that goes back into just into our practices, and not being able to handle the tough times in practice and pushing each other to the limit. So then when we do get in games and there is pushback from other teams, that we kind of have that toughness to push back and to find a way to get the job done. And so I just think it, for whatever reason, we're not there yet, and we need to kind of learn these lessons sooner rather than later, I think, before the season really gets out of hand.
So then this past Saturday, you guys were back at home, played Geneseo at home, one of the top ranked teams in the country, and that game ultimately led to you guys losing 5-0, not being able to get one on the score sheet. Just what went wrong for you guys Saturday night at home?
Well, you take 5 penalties in the first period, you're not going to win. It's that simple. I don't care who you're playing. You could be playing the New York Rangers, you could be playing a squirt hockey team. If you take 5 penalties in one period, and you give up 2 power play goals, and they weren't even good penalties. It was most certainly avoidable penalties, and you give a team like that too many opportunities on the power play, and you're going to pay for it, and ultimately we did. And you're down 3-0 after the first, and we haven't won a hockey game in 2 years when we've given up 3 goals or more. So it's a recipe for disaster when you don't want to defend and you can't stay out of the box. And so, yeah, ultimately that did us in. I thought, again, our second period was pretty good. We had plenty of chances. We couldn't score a goal. And so, you combine those two things, you're looking at a long night.
So currently the team sits 7th place in the SUNYAC, 2-5 in the conference, just one spot out of the playoffs if they did start today. Just in your eyes, what does the team have to do to just kind of get better in SUNYAC play?
Win. And find a way to win. And it starts with us showing up to practice and putting in the work every single day. And doing the right things. It starts with the skills and the habits that what we've been trying to teach the past few weeks in practice. They need to start translating over to the games, and they're not doing that. And I go back to the 4th goal against Brockport. It was a little bit of a one-on-one situation. We preach deflecting, stick on puck, deflecting or blocking shots, and our defenseman, instead of extending his stick to make sure that we deflect it or block it, he pulls his stick back, ultimately screens the goalie, and it's 4-3. So the things that we're working on in practice they're not doing in a game, and ultimately those are where our shortcomings are happening. So I think we just need to have more consistency in our day-to-day routines as far as our preparation and what we're doing before we get to the rink and before practice, and then obviously in practice. And until those habits and stuff become better, I don't think you're going to see a whole lot change here.
So obviously, speaking of preparation for this week, there are 2 more SUNYAC games that are coming up, but this practice throughout this week, obviously there's a lot on your shoulders to help guide and get this team back up to SUNYAC rankings. But what are you doing this week to kind of prepare the team to get on a better trajectory?
Well, I think we're trying to instill a little compete and a little will, and maybe piss some guys off a little bit here. Even looking back at Saturday, we dressed 10-6, like we dressed a short lineup, and quite frankly, there were guys that haven't earned the right to play, and so I'm not dressing them anymore. Now I fully expect them to be better this week in practice, but if they're not, then they're not going to be back in, and I think that goes for the guys that were in as well. So, it's going to be 2 hard games. You look at Plattsburgh, the number 2 team in the country, and then we're going to get Potsdam, a team that hasn't won yet in conference, so they're going to be hungry. And it's the final games here, just of SUNYAC play before the break, so I think both teams are going to be itching here for 2 to 4 points.
Well, obviously, you mentioned a little bit about Plattsburgh and Potsdam. We'll get a little more into them throughout the later part of the episode, but just what is your message to the team this week, just wrapping up the semester on a strong note?
Well, as much as you'd like to start to prepare for those 2 teams, I just think we have so much stuff that we've got to figure out on our end that we need to focus on just us and getting our game right, because I just think there's a lot here. And again, it's not that we're super far off, but there's just a lot of things that are creeping into our game that are failing us. And I think if every single person can just make a small little tweak here in how we're preparing and what we're doing and the accountability that they're having for themselves and for the teammates, then I think this thing can get turned around. But we're not seeing that, and so I think that's why the results have been pretty consistent with the way that they've been showing up on our schedule. So, I'm hoping that we finish these last 2 games strong here, but it starts with us having a good week of practice.
So, talking about Plattsburgh, one of the top-ranked teams in the country, one of the top-ranked teams in SUNYAC, what do they do very well in your eyes that you'll be guys playing them this Friday at home?
Yeah, I think that they're fast and they're relentless, and I think it's a team that obviously can score 5-on-5, but can also live and kind of die by their power play. And so, we got to stay out of the box, which we haven't done a very good job of the past 2 games. And so, I think if we can limit their opportunities on the power play, we'll set ourselves up to potentially have some success. But we need to start the game right from the drop of the puck. We can't be waiting 20 minutes, to have our best period. It's got to start right away, and we need to start to create some momentum and some positivity for ourselves moving into the second period and the third period and go from there. So, it was a great game here last year where ultimately we beat them 3-1. If we can show up right from the drop and get going, and I know it's a team that we can skate with, but how is our defending, how is our checking, and are we taking care of the puck and managing it in the critical areas and stuff like that? Are we staying out of the box? And if we do those things, then we could set ourselves up for success on Friday night.
So now moving on to this Saturday night, also at home, you guys will be taking on Potsdam, and you kind of talked about how they don't have a winning conference yet. They're a hungry team. How do you kind of go up against a team like that is just looking for their first win in conference play?
Well, our desperation needs to be, greater than theirs. That's a team that, again, is I don't I hope we don't sleep on them just because they don't have any wins, and it's going to be a tough matchup, and most certainly our last game here before we get back in January. So it'd be great for us here just to leave on a good note, going into the kind of the 2-week break, feeling good about ourselves before we come back and play in January. But Potsdam's going to be tough. I mean, it was an overtime game here last year, and we know all SUNYAC games are going to be hard regardless of who you're playing, and they're most certainly going to be up for it and ready to try and come in here and get 2 points. And again, I think our urgency and our desperation has to be through the roof if we're going to beat them on Saturday.
All right, that has been another episode of Mondays with Murph with myself, Evan Harrington, and Bengals head coach Steve Murphy. Just want to say, everyone, thank you for tuning in every Monday, and we will see you guys next Monday after the Bengals get back in SUNYAC action. We'll see you then.